right, we're ready to continue on with the state's next witness. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. The state calls Detective Sergeant First Class Chris Clayton.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. How are you? Just watch your step there, if you don't mind. When you're ready, if you can put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, once you're comfortable and seated, can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
It's Christopher James Clayton, last name C-L-A-Y-T-O-N.
Thank you. Prosecutor.
Thank you, Judge. Sergeant Clayton, can you tell us where you work?
I'm currently employed by the New Jersey State Police.
Okay, and approximately how long have you worked with the New Jersey State Police?
20 years, 6 months.
Okay, and what is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the ballistics unit.
Okay, and approximately how long have you been with the ballistics unit?
16 years, 6 months.
Okay, now taking you back to the beginning of your career with the New Jersey State Police, did you have to go to Police Academy, State Police Academy?
Yes.
Okay, did you complete that?
Yes.
And once you completed the New Jersey State Police Academy, can you tell us a little bit about your first assignment?
Sure. So after the State Police Academy, it's approximately 6 months long down in Seagard. My first station was down in Woodbine, New Jersey. My second station was at Buena Vista. Then I was at the Atlantic City Expressway. And then I was fortunate enough to get selected into the ballistics unit where I'm currently at now.
Okay, and I think you said you've been there approximately 16 years?
16 years, 6 months, sir.
Okay. Now, can you just tell us generally what the ballistics unit does?
Sure. So the ballistics unit examines firearms, and then we also do microscopic comparisons of discharged bullets and discharged cartridge cases, and trying to identify if they came out of a particular firearm or not. We'll spend a lot of time doing that in my job as a firearm tool mark examiners. But we also test fire weapons to see if they're operable and capable of being discharged, to see if a gun works or not. We can do serial number restoration. We also take in evidence, and then we also obviously do courtroom testimony as well.
Okay. Now, your current rank, you said, is what?
My current rank is Detective Sergeant First Class.
Okay. And when you began your career in the ballistics unit, what was your rank?
I was General Road Duty Trooper 1.
Now, I think you talked about what the ballistics unit does. Can you tell us what your day-to-day job duties entail as a firearms and tool mark examiner?
Sure. So right now, as my rank, I'm the assistant unit head in the ballistics unit. So I assist in running the daily operations of the unit. I think we supervise about 40 employees, that's both civilian and enlisted employees, enlisted troopers who do examinations. So a lot of my duties now are administrative, but I'm still active in doing casework. So I'm still an active fireman tool mark examiner.
Okay. Can you talk about the initial training that you received once you joined the ballistics unit?
Sure. So the training that we get in the ballistics unit, it's pretty extensive. It's about an 18 to 24-month training program that we go through. Our training is in-house, so we work side by side with another qualified examiner who acts as our trainer and mentor throughout the process. It also acts as an apprenticeship-style program as well, because we're active in doing casework with our trainer. So we see firsthand the cases that are coming in. The first part of our training, or the first couple months, it's a lot of handling different firearms. We're fortunate in our unit. When I was there, our reference collection of firearms was over 3,000 guns that we had. So a lot of our training is focused on handling different types of firearms: semi-automatic pistols, revolvers, shotguns, rifles, semi-automatic weapons, fully automatic weapons. So we'll test fire all types of weapons, and then we'll take the guns apart. We'll put the guns back together. We'll identify malfunctions with the guns. We also follow AFTI's training manual. AFTI is the Association of Firearm and Tool Mark Examiners. And AFTI is an organization specifically for practitioners of firearm and tool mark identification. The next part of our phase of training, after we handle all those firearms, we spend a lot of time doing the microscopic comparisons of discharged bullets, discharged cartridge cases to a particular firearm. Spend hundreds of hours underneath the microscope. Specifically, what we'll look at is bullets and cartridge cases that are fired from the same gun, and then we'll look at bullets and cartridge cases that are fired from different guns. So you get really good and proficient at recognizing patterns and pattern recognition. You really get to see patterns or corresponding patterns of tool marks that are fired from the same gun and how they correspond, and that lack of pattern agreement from bullets and cartridge cases that are fired from different guns. Also within that training phase, that 2 years that we go through, we'll spend about 2 weeks and we'll visit other manufacturers, firearms manufacturers. So we can see firsthand, one, how firearms are made, and then two, we'll also get to see how these parts of the firearms are manufactured and how those imperfections in those firearms are transferred over or imparted to the bullets and cartridge cases that they come in contact with. At the end of that 2-year training phase, we'll go through a series of proficiency tests and moot courts or mock trials before we start doing examinations on our own.
Okay. So did you ultimately complete that process that you just described?
Yes.
And during the course of that, you talked about going to manufacturing facilities, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about which ones you've been to and the purpose of that?
Sure. So I've been through numerous, I think in total, about 18 different firearms manufacturers that I've been to. Some of them, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, Beretta, all different firearms manufacturers. And there's 2 reasons why we go to do that and why it's important. One, we get to see firsthand how guns are made, how firearms are manufactured. And then the second part of that, we get a really good understanding of how during that manufacturing part of these gun parts, whether it's a breech face, a firing pin, the inside of the barrel, how there's imperfections or distinct imperfections inside these parts of that gun that are transferred over to the bullets and the cartridge cases that they come in contact with. And that's where me as a fireman tool mark examiner can make those identifications or eliminations to a specific firearm.
Okay. Now, before I ask you about additional training and experience, once you began doing casework, I just want to show you what's been marked as S348.
You say 348?
348.
Okay.
Let me ask you to take a look at that and let me know if you recognize it.
I do, sir. So that State Exhibit 348 is a copy of my state police resume.
Hey, does that document your educational background and a lot about your career and your training?
Correct, sir.
Okay. And I guess starting at that point, can you tell us about your educational background prior to joining the state police?
I went to Rutgers University, and then I got my master's degree while I was in the state police through Seton Hall University.
Okay. Now, whether you need to reference S348 or not, can you tell us about additional training that you've undergone during the course of like the approximate 16 plus years in the unit?
Sure. So once we go through that initial training phase, about 2 years or so, and you're starting to do your examinations on your own, the training for us continues. So we're constantly learning and we're constantly going through continuing education in our career. I think in total, I've been to at least, 34 different workshops that I've attended for firearms-related courses. Firearms manufacturers, like I said before, I think it's about 18 different manufacturers that I've toured throughout the United States. Training conferences, I think there's at least about 21 training conferences that I have attended, and that would be through AFTE, the Association of Fireman Tool Mark Examiners. They have an annual conference that they would do, and then other seminars that I've been to, whether it's the FBI, the ATF, or other law enforcement agencies. So for us as examiners, you have that initial training phase of those 2 years, which it takes, but the training and education for us continues throughout your career.
Now, you talked about your current rank being a Sergeant First Class, correct?
Correct.
Now, as a result of that, are you involved with training others in the field of firearm and tool mark examination?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about how that works?
Sure. So throughout my career, I've also trained other new examiners in our unit in the past. I'm currently training 2 examiners now that have been in our unit. And then I assist with training other examiners as well within the unit.
Have you done presentations for anyone on the field of firearm and tool mark examination?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where? For what?
With the state police had a crime scene investigation school. I taught or lectured there, and then through other county prosecutors as well, and then also through a high school and some colleges or the high school kids will come through tours. Lectures and doing that on firearm tool mark identification, we'll also do that throughout our career.
Okay. Now, what types of agencies submit evidence to the New Jersey State Police ballistics unit?
All types. So it's law enforcement agencies throughout the state, local police departments, the state police, also the ATF and FBI.
Now, if you could approximate for us, I know it's probably a little difficult, how many cases you've completed throughout your 16-plus years in the ballistics unit?
I'd say close to 3,000.
And when we talk about that, what types of firearm-related evidence are you examining?
All types, it could vary. So the cases that we get, it could be one gun, it could be one bullet, it could be a cartridge case, it could be several bullets, several cartridge cases, several guns. So it varies. So with those 3,000 cases I've completed close to, or even over, it's all types of weapons, all types of ammunition that gets submitted to us.
As part of your work, I mean, does that involve also test firing weapons for purposes of determining things like operability?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and approximately how many weapons have you test fired for that purpose?
Easily hundreds of weapons throughout my career.
And when we talk about microscopic comparisons between bullets and cartridges and things like that, can you approximate how many types of approximately how many number of comparisons that you've engaged in?
Sure. I mean, in over 16 years doing this, thousands of comparisons.
Now, when you talk about being under a microscope, both in training but also in the casework, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Does your work supervising others, does that also involve looking underneath a microscope?
Correct, sir.
Okay, how does that work?
So in our lab, we'll do microscopic comparisons of, like I said, discharge bullets, discharge cartridge cases. So a lot of time is spent doing these comparisons. What we also have in our lab as a policy, once I reach my conclusions, doing a microscopic comparison, all our work is also peer-reviewed by another examiner. So not only am I doing my own work of comparisons, I'm also peering other examiners' work throughout my career.
Now, specifically, that peer review process, can you explain how that works at the ballistics unit?
Sure. So like I said, anytime we do any type of microscopic comparison work, we'll write up our report, we'll have our own conclusions, but then we have another examiner also peer that work that we did. And they're going to look at everything, but they're going to do it in a blind manner where they don't know the results of our conclusions before we give it to them. So they're going to reach their own conclusions. The reason why we do that, one, it's protocol, but two, it's as a safety measure for our lab. I realize that anything that there's a human endeavor or there's humans doing things, there's always the potential that there could be an error, but we take every step that we can as examiners in our unit to ensure that a mistake does not go out. So that's why we have that peer review process set in place.
What types of cases are you asked to analyze as an examiner in the ballistics unit?
All types of cases. So the cases are going to be obviously firearms related. So there's going to be some type of firearm involved or ammunition, bullet, cartridge cases, or fragments. So it's firearms related. But those could be anything from a crime, from found items to murders to homicides to aggravated assaults.
Have you investigated like police-involved shootings?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you investigated police-involved shootings involving essentially colleagues within the New Jersey State Police?
Yes.
Okay. And have you, during the course of those police-involved shooting examinations, have you been able to include things like bullets and shell casings and associate them with a particular gun?
Yes.
How about exclude?
Yes, sir.
Now, during the course of your 16-plus years, have you had the occasion to testify in Superior Court in New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during the course of that, have you ever been offered as an expert in the field of firearm and tool mark identification?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Approximately how many times?
65.
That's how many times you've qualified as an expert?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when we talk about those 65 times, is that just in State Superior Court or other places as well?
So it's been mostly in Superior Court, and I've testified down in Salem County, as far south there. all the way up to Hudson County and Passaic County. We testify all over, obviously Monmouth County, Mercer County. That's been the majority of courts that I have testified in, but I've also testified 4 times in federal court as well.
Now, during the course of your work, and specifically your casework, have you ever had any of your work re-examined by another outside examiner?
It has been.
Have you ever had an occasion where someone was retained to look at your evidence and actually physically looked at the evidence?
Yes.
Now, based upon your experience, your testimony, and the work that you've done, are you aware of any situations where you have concluded to something, either a match or an exclusion, that has been determined to be wrong?
No, to the best of my knowledge, no, sir.
And I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but why is that?
I think there's several reasons. I think one, the extensive training that we go through, the training program that we go through is extensive. Like I said, it's about 2 years before you start doing your own casework. Also, the documentation that we do when we do any type of microscopic comparison work through extensive notes, we photograph what we're looking at, and if there is an identification, we'll photograph it, and then we have that peer review process. So I think those are the steps that we take to do the best we can to ensure that an error does not go out.
Judge, at this time, the state would offer Christopher Clayton as an expert in the field of firearm and tool mark examination.
Thank you, Judge.
Sure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
So I just want to go back to one thing you said. You mentioned that you've had situations where you've been tasked with a comparison where there's been a single gun and a single bullet involved in a case, right?
Correct.
But there's also situations where it's more complicated. You've had multiple guns, multiple cases, right?
True. Yes.
And those guns are, I'm sure, not always the same make and model of weapon, right? Sometimes a case could involve different brands of firearm, right?
Correct.
And it could involve not only different brands of firearm, but different types of ammunition.
Yes,
right? And to complicate things even further, just because, let's say, a 9mm handgun was used in an alleged crime that you're investigating through ballistics, people don't always load their guns with the identical types, make and manufacture of ammunition, right? Like I could have a gun, it's a 9mm. I can load it with 9mm ammo, but there's more than one company who makes 9mm ammo, right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure you've seen in your career, sometimes a gun can be loaded with different manufacturer types of the same ammunition.
Correct.
And so that ammunition, obviously, all of it is designed to be fired out of the same caliber weapon.
True.
But those individual casings, bullets, the cartridges, I guess, are manufactured by different companies.
Correct.
And you've had situations where I'm sure you've had to compare casings and or bullets that were, though the same caliber of ammunition, were potentially manufactured by separate companies, right?
Sure. Yes.
And what you've relied on, I'd imagine in those situations, is being able to identify unique factors in the tool markings on the parts, relevant parts of the weapons themselves.
Correct.
Also, obviously, ammunition can be made of different metals in different places, right?
Correct.
Like a casing could have a nickel primer and a brass case.
Correct.
It could also have a brass primer and a brass case.
Correct.
You've had situations where you've had both those types of ammunition in an investigation.
Yes, sir.
And you've had to compare a nickel primer brass case with brass primer brass case and say, were these types of ammunition fired from the same weapon?
Correct.
And to do that, you're going to look at things like, if you're looking at a bullet, obviously, you're looking at the markings on the bullet, right?
Correct.
But if you're looking at the shell casing, you got to look to things like the breech face, right?
Correct.
And you've got to look to things like the hammer mark, right?
Firing pin?
Firing pin, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Firing pin. And you got to look to perhaps the ejector port markings, right?
Correct.
But in those cases, the fact that there was perhaps a different manufacturer of the same caliber ammunition, that hasn't prevented you from being able to make an identification, right?
Or, no, yes, you're right, sir.
And that fact hasn't prevented you obviously it hasn't prevented you from making an exclusion, I'm sure.
Correct.
But you've also been able to make positive identifications despite the fact that there were different manufacturer types of ammunition in a case.
Correct.
Okay. And then you just said before that, to your knowledge, none of your conclusions have ever been proven to be incorrect.
Correct.
Okay. When you were answering that question, were you thinking about within the context of your laboratory, where there's a reviewer of your work, or were you thinking about the situation where you testify in court, where that's never been proven? Like, what were you thinking when you said that your work has never been shown to be incorrect?
So in the context of whether my work going out or any work from our unit that went out with the peer review and it finding through an outside agency or further investigation that it was an incorrect conclusion.
Okay, once your work is peer reviewed and it leaves the lab,
Correct.
what is the next layer of review that would be applied to?
That would be the final review. There's no other review. It would go to the outside agency, and that would be the final, I guess, outcome of the case.
Okay. So, like, the reviewer who reviews your work within your lab is really the last opportunity for there to be a determination of whether your conclusions are correct or incorrect.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're saying that your conclusions, as far as your work in the lab, have never been shown to be incorrect.
Correct.
And that would mean that the reviewer who's peer reviewed your work has never disagreed with your findings.
It's rare. On occasions in my 16 and a half years there, you can get a peer reviewer that would look at your work, and they might indicate it could be an inconclusive result. But there's never, to my knowledge, that I had a peer reviewer look at my work that would either be an identification or an elimination where there was any type of discrepancy. And if there would be, in that case, and this is the policy throughout our unit, if there's any type of discrepancy between the original report that went out or the conclusions, and then the peer reviewer had a discrepancy, then the reviewer and the original examiner would come together and you would figure out why there was a discrepancy before the report went out.
Okay. But so just so that I understand this, though, that discrepancy you're talking about, and in terms of your personal work that's been peer reviewed, have those situations happened in your career, or have they not happened?
16 and a half years, there have been occasions where the conclusions would be different.
Okay. Meaning that somebody peer reviewed your work and said, either you're making an inclusion or an exclusion, and this peer reviewer says, I don't agree with that finding.
On those rare occasions, I can't recall a time when it was an identification or an elimination. It would more be along the lines of, hey, if I came to the conclusion and it was inconclusive, maybe they shot different ammunition or they used a different light source, and they might have come up with an identification result. And in that situation, or if we did have those situations, you would get together and figure out why. I would want to know why it would be an identification, or it could be an inconclusive. You don't know. So to answer your question, in my 16 and a half years there, have there ever been a discrepancy? It does not happen often, but I'm sure there was times when if it was an inconclusive result or an identification, you can get varying results. And that's why we have that peer review process, to go over it, to ensure that, again, we don't have a false identification that goes out as that final product.
Okay. So that, what you're referring to there is a discrepancy, which sounds like it's a bit of a disagreement between the peer reviewer and yourself as the initial reviewer. When you say it maybe has happened a handful of times, would you say over 16 years there's that kind of discrepancy has arisen 2 times, 3 times? Like, do you have any way of...
No, I can't quantify it, and I wouldn't put a numerical value on it, but it does not happen often.
Would it be less than 5 or more than 5?
Again, I don't want to put a numerical value on it, but it's rare. It does not happen often.
Okay. Would it be less than 50?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be less than 10?
Again, I don't know, sir.
Okay. Judge, could we just approach briefly?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the court's going to accept Detective Sergeant First Class Chris Clayton as an expert in the field of firearms and tool mark examination. Again, very limited. You are not bound by such expert's opinion, but you should consider the opinion and give it the weight to which you deem it is entitled, whether that is great or slight, or you may reject it. In examining an expert opinion, you may consider the reasons given for it, if any, and you may consider the qualifications and the credibility of the expert. Again, it's within your function to make that determination one way or another. I've given you this charge 3 times, or would have been 3 times today. I feel very confident that everyone understands that charge. It's probably the 9th or 8th time you've heard it already in this case, but I'm not going to go through it in detail because I think you have it at this point. With that being said, prosecutor, go ahead.
Sergeant Clayton, you just asked them some questions about, like, comparing different firearms and different types of ammunition. You know, it could be a Glock pistol, but it might not be always the same ammunition to fire it. Now, is that essentially what you do for a living?
Yes, sir.
Now, any of the questions you were asked, do those scenarios pose problems for you in your day-to-day work activities? Now, I want to ask you what firearm and tool mark identification actually is.
Sure. So, the firearm and tool mark identification. So, tool mark identification is a discipline of forensic science where the primary objective is to determine if a tool mark was or was not made by a specific tool. And you have firearms identification, which again is a discipline of forensic science where the primary objective is to determine if a bullet or cartridge case was or was not fired in a particular firearm. Firearms identification is a subset of tool mark identification where a firearm is a tool and it leaves tool marks on the bullet and the cartridge case that it comes in contact with.
You said, I was going to ask you what a tool is. You said the definition of tool includes firearms, correct?
Correct, sir.
But what's a tool in general?
So if we define what a tool is, it's just an object that's used to gain a mechanical advantage over another object. That's the technical definition. But a tool is just like what you would think a tool is, whether it's a hammer, a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, a crowbar. And to me as an examiner, a firearm is a tool. And a firearm is actually, you have a gun, but it's made up of several parts, whether it's the barrel, ejector, breech face, firing pin. These are different tools. So you have to, the way I think of it as a firearm, it's just a firearm is one gun, but it's made up of several tools.
And we'll talk about the parts of the gun momentarily, but what's a tool mark?
So tool marks are produced when you have 2 objects that come into forceful contact with one another. Then the harder object is going to mark the softer object. So the harder object being the gun or the parts of the gun, and the softer object would be the bullet and the cartridge case that come in contact with those parts of the gun, and that gun leaves tool marks on these bullets or the cartridge case.
Are there different types of tool marks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
So there's two main types of tool marks that we look for as a fireman tool mark examiner. One would be a strided mark. So strided marks are just scratch marks. And those are produced by lateral force and motion. And then you have impressed marks, which are just created by compressed force. Think of it, you stamp something. So you have strided marks and compressed marks, or impressed marks are the two tool marks that we look for.
So when a firearm fires a bullet out of the gun, are there actually tool marks imparted on different firearms evidence?
Correct. So a bullet going down the barrel would create strided marks or scratch marks on that bullet.
And are there different characteristics or types of tool marks?
There are, sir.
Okay, can you tell us about the two main types?
Sure. So we can break down tool marks into, I guess, classes of class characteristics. So the first would be, we call them class characteristics, and they're just measurable features of a specimen that would indicate a restricted group source. They're predetermined from the manufacturer. So what that means is the class characteristics of a firearm, one would be the caliber of the gun, which is just the size of the barrel of the bore. What else is inside that barrel of a gun? You would have lands and grooves. And we'll talk about that a little later, but you have a specific number of lands and grooves that are inside the barrel of a gun. And then those lands and grooves twist either to the right or to the left. And the reason why you have that twist, it spins the bullet better trajectory. A good analogy I can give you is if you look at the barrel of a gun, if you think about a candy cane, that red ribbon that spirals, it's very much like the barrel of a firearm. So those are all class characteristics. And I'll break it down like this. If me as an examiner, and I just have a bullet, and we're talking about I'm a fireman tool mark examiner, if I just have a bullet, well, the possibility could be I have this amount of tools in the world that could have marked that bullet. Well, I know it's a gun. So now you go from this pool, now you're looking for a gun, it's smaller. And then I look at that bullet, or I measure that bullet, and I can measure it as a 38 caliber class, that pool shrinks, shrinking even more. And then I just count the number of lands and grooves on that bullet, 6 lands, 6 grooves, and it has a right twist. Now my pool, that restricted pool, goes from this now to this of the possible guns that could have fired that bullet. That's where that restricted group source comes in. It's the same thing with a cartridge case. When you fire a cartridge case or a shell inside that gun, it could be the shape of the firing pin. It could be a circular firing pin. The aperture could be circular. There's different types of breech face marks. Those are all class characteristics that would be unique to that firearm. So we'll do the same exercise with a cartridge case. I have a discharge cartridge case, okay? I know there's tool marks on there. You take every tool in the world. Well, I know the tool that made those marks. It was a gun. It came from a discharge cartridge case. So now the pool goes from this to this. I could look at the caliber of that cartridge case. It's going to be head stamped right on that cartridge case. You could say 9mm Luger, for example. That's 38 caliber, so my pool shrinks even more. Circular firing pin, it shrinks even more. And then the type of breech face marks. So now that's that restricted group source. Those are class characteristics. The other class, or the other type of characteristics that I'll talk about for a fireman tool mark examiner, we have class, and then we have our individual characteristics. Individual characteristics are tool marks that are produced from the imperfections on a tool surface from the manufacturing process. So we use those individual characteristics to individualize a tool mark back to the specific gun that made that mark. So if we go back, my class characteristics are in this small pool. There's this group of guns here. Now I'm looking for those individual characteristics to pick out that one gun that specifically made that mark. So that's what I'm doing as a fireman tool mark examiner. But those are two different or important characteristics for me as an examiner to identify. Would be class and then your individual characteristics.
We'll get specific in a moment, but with respect to determining, like, you referenced like a bullet. With respect to trying to figure out the class characteristics of a specific bullet, do you do that visually? Do you do it under a microscope? How does that happen?
So if I just have a bullet, visually for those class characteristics, you don't have to go underneath a comparison microscope to look at these class characteristics. You could just look at it a regular the microscope. You can count the number of lands and grooves on the bullet. It's small, but you can count them. and then they're going to twist, rather to the right or to the left. And you can see that visually with your naked eye. To get the caliber of a bullet, if the bullet's in good condition, you just measure the base of the bullet, and that will give you the type of caliber size of the bullet and the type of gun that's meant to fire that class of bullet.
And when you receive like bullets in a case, do you individually examine each item, each bullet, in order to measure it, determine number of lands and grooves, determine caliber and things like that?
Yeah, so the first step of my examination process is going to be examining the bullet or the cartridge case for its class characteristics first.
And you mentioned lands and grooves a few times. Can you just tell us specifically what a land is and what a groove is?
Sure. So most firearms, there's rifling inside most firearms. And the reason why there's rifling in a gun is to impart a twist on a bullet for accuracy. So what rifling is, you have these spiral grooves that are cut inside the barrel, and then in between those cuts for the grooves, we call them the lands. That's the metal that hasn't been removed, so they're raised. So again, those are manufacturer specs as far as how many lands and grooves they want inside their barrel. And then the lands and grooves can either twist to the right or to the left. That twist spins the bullet for accuracy and trajectory purposes.
Now, maybe I should ask earlier, but when we talk about like a semi-automatic handgun, have you encountered those during the course of your career?
Yes, they're very common.
Okay. Now, is that, specifically, is that like something you actually carry as a member of the New Jersey State Police?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you just tell us, generally speaking, how a firearm actually shoots a bullet and what actually happens?
Sure. I'll run down the whole process. So typically, the most common handgun is a semi-automatic pistol. That's just a repeating firearm that requires a single pull of the trigger for each shot fired. And then it uses a portion of that energy to cycle the action and repeat it again. That's the technical definition. But how it works is this. You would have your ammunition magazine, and then you would take cartridges and load your cartridges inside the ammunition magazine. That ammunition magazine gets loaded inside the grip of the gun or the magazine well. Once that ammunition magazine is inside that grip, the gun technically isn't loaded yet. You have to have some type of action to put one of those cartridges in the chamber of that gun. So magazine ammunition is in that grip of the gun. The top part of the gun is the slide. It's under spring tension. So you just pull that slide back. That slide comes forward, and it's going to pick up one of those cartridge cases, load it into the chamber of the gun, and it's also going to cock that gun. So now the gun is ready to be fired. It's loaded. Pull the trigger. When you pull the trigger, it trips a hammer or a spring mechanism, and there's a striker of the firing pin that hits the primer of that cartridge. It detonates that cartridge, and then there's pressure that builds up from that burning gunpowder or propellant. The pressure builds up. Pushes that bullet down the barrel of the gun. There's pressure that goes forward, and then there's also pressure that's coming back. So there's pressure that's coming back, right? And that slides under spring tension again. Slide comes back because that pressure's pushing it back. There's an extractor and ejector piece inside that gun, which automatically extracts and ejects that cartridge case. Slide comes back. The cartridge case is ejected from the gun. The slide comes forward again, and it's going to pick up another one of those cartridges, loads it into the chamber, and then the gun is ready to fire again. Now when you pull the trigger, it's just going to repeat that cycle over. That's how a semi-automatic pistol works.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the process of comparing bullets and cartridges? Are there evaluation steps that are undertaken?
Yes. So the steps for us, it's common. It's always the same process. Whether we have a bullet or a cartridge case, the first thing we're going to do is evaluate that bullet. If there are two bullets or two cartridge cases, evaluate the specimens for their class characteristics. If the class characteristics are the same, meaning it's the same caliber, the same number of lands and grooves, the same direction of twist for a bullet. For a cartridge case, same thing. Is it the same caliber? Does it have the same breech face marks? Does it have the same shape of the firing pin? If the class characteristics are the same, then we'll go and we'll do a microscopic comparison of these two specimens, and we'll look for those tool marks to see if there's corresponding marks or not. If at that first part of the evaluation, looking at those class characteristics, if I have two bullets and the class characteristics are different, one twist to the left, one twist is to the right. I know they didn't come out of the same barrel. They're different class characteristics, different numbers of lands and grooves. I could do an elimination right there, meaning that these two bullets did not come out of the same gun. You don't have to take it to a microscopic comparison level. Same thing with the two discharge cartridge cases. If the class characteristics are different, maybe the shape of the firing pin, one is a circular shape, one is a square shape, different, your evaluation or examination can end right there. They did not come out of the same gun. The class characteristics are the same. It's the same process. We'll go to that next step or that next level, and then we'll do a microscopic comparison to see if these two bullets or these two cartridge cases were fired in the same gun or not.
Now, when you talked about AFTI before, correct?
Correct, sir.
And does AFTI have any documentation regarding identifications of tool marks in the field?
They do.
Can I just approach, if that's okay? Show S500. I'm just going to show you what we marked as S500 for identification. You recognize what that is?
I do, sir. It's State Exhibit S500, and it's AFTI's theory of identification as it relates to tool marks.
Okay. And what is the purpose of that document?
So AFTI's theory of identification is their theory of identification of what you would need as an examiner to reach a same source conclusion. A same source conclusion meaning that these two tool marks share the same source. If it's two bullets or two cartridge cases, that they were fired in the same gun.
Now, that theory of identification, does it talk about what you need to see as an examiner in order to conclude a match or in order to eliminate?
It does. So it breaks it down. It is lengthy, but it breaks it down and gives guidance as far as what you would need to render a same source conclusion, meaning an identification.
Now, are there two conditions that need to be met under the AFTI theory of identification in order for you to make a conclusion or an identification?
There is, sir.
Can you talk about those two things?
Sure. So for me as a fireman tool mark examiner, for me to make that determination of an identification, meaning that these two bullets or these two cartridge cases were fired out of the same gun, there's basically two criteria that I'm looking for and that has to be met. And then one, when I'm looking at these tool marks and comparing them and evaluating them, that this is consistent with what I would expect to see from two bullets or two cartridge cases that were fired in the same gun. The second criteria, the second point would be that when I'm evaluating these tool marks, that I would not expect to see this type of agreement from two different bullets or two different firearms that were fired in two different guns. So one would be it's consistent with, and the other part would be it exceeds the agreement from two different firearms that I would expect to see from two different firearms.
Is there a range of conclusions under the AFTI theory?
Yes, sir.
And what are those?
So basically there's four different ranges of conclusions that we can come up with when we're doing a microscopic comparison. And the first one would be when you're looking at two specimens or a specimen, it could be unsuitable. Unsuitable meaning that there's no tool marks to really evaluate, so you really can't do anything with it. It might be a piece of metal, a piece of lead, but there's no tool marks on there for comparison purposes. So we would just call that specimen unsuitable for microscopic comparisons. The other conclusion that we can reach would be an identification. Like we said before, an identification is a conclusion that these two bullets or cartridge cases were fired in the same gun, and then it has to meet the two criteria that we're looking for, that this is consistent with, and then it also exceeds the agreement from two tool marks fired by two different guns. That will give you an identification conclusion. The other conclusion would be an elimination, that I could come up with the determination that these two bullets or these two cartridge cases were not fired in the same gun. The other conclusion that we can reach is an inconclusive result. So when you're comparing tool marks to each other, the result that you can get, if you're not seeing that sufficient agreement, or there's not agreement of those tool marks, to render an ID or an elimination would be inconclusive, meaning I don't know if these two specimens came out of the same gun or not. For me as an examiner, if there's any doubt in my mind whether these two bullets or cartridge cases could have come from the same gun, or maybe these bullets or cartridge cases could not have come from the same gun, if there's any doubt in my mind, it would be an inconclusive result.
I think you mentioned it earlier, but are there times when you receive, just bullets in a case for purposes of comparison?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if you just receive bullets, no gun, no shell casings, what are you doing with those items?
So if it's a case where there's no gun that's submitted to us and it's 2 bullets, you can still render a conclusion. It would still be the same, an ID, an elimination, or an inconclusive. If it's an ID, my conclusion would be that these 2 bullets were fired in the same gun, but I don't know what particular gun it was fired from because I don't have the gun. But the conclusion would be that these 2 bullets came out of the same gun. Same thing for a cartridge case. It would be the same for an elimination as well. If I don't have the gun, I can't tell you what specific gun, but I would be able to tell you that they did or did not come from the same firearm.
I imagine you've also had cases where you've gotten bullets, you've gotten cartridge cases, but you've also had a weapon or multiple weapons submitted, correct?
Correct.
Now, I just want to turn to how evidence comes into your lab at the state police. Can you talk about that process?
Yes. So we're in-house. We don't go out to the scenes. We don't collect the evidence. Any ballistic evidence that is submitted to us from an outside agency is submitted by them to us. So what the outside agency would do is there's an evidence pre-log system. It's a LIM system, Laboratory Information Management System. So they have a pre-log. We have evidence technicians in our unit. The evidence would get submitted to them by the submitting agency. They would take custody of that evidence. At that time, the evidence is going to get their own individual itemized number with our laboratory number, and then that case is going to get its own ballistic laboratory number as well. The items are going to get scribed. The case number is going to go on each of those items. In return, the submitting agency is going to get an evidence receipt, and the evidence receipt will get turned over to them saying that, hey, we have this evidence now, it's in our custody. Once the evidence is cleaned, once the evidence is scribed, it gets sealed, and then the evidence will go in a pending vault until it's, assigned to an examiner to complete the examination.
Right. Obviously, you're here today to testify about some evidence that you were asked to review as part of your duties, correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to just show you what's been marked as S349. Do you recognize that?
I do, sir. This is an evidence receipt, State Exhibit S349.
Okay. Does that ultimately have a New Jersey State Police unique laboratory number?
It does, sir.
And what is that?
It's C18-10138.
And does that ultimately indicate that someone brought potential ballistic evidence to the state police that ultimately went to you for evaluation?
Yes, so this indicates what evidence was dropped off to us, and in return, the evidence receipt will get turned over to that submitting agency saying that we have custody of this evidence.
How many items of evidence were provided to you under that laboratory receipt?
I believe this one was 17.
And now, did each one of those items, did they ultimately get a New Jersey State Police item number?
It did, sir.
And what were the item numbers, if you could give us like this number through that number?
It goes through item number 10 all the way to item number 26.
Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to show you S350 for identification. Do you recognize that document?
I do, sir.
Okay, what is that?
So it's another evidence receipt.
Okay, does that document that some items of ballistic evidence were provided to the state police for analysis?
Correct, sir.
Were they both delivered on the same date or different dates, those two, S349, S350?
So State Exhibit S349, that was received at 11/26/2018. And then State Exhibit S350 was delivered on 11/26/2018.
Were they delivered by the same detective?
They were, sir.
And that second one, S350, how many items were listed on that receipt?
Looks like 11 items, sir.
Okay. And were those also assigned New Jersey State Police item numbers?
Correct.
And what were those item numbers?
Item number 9 through 19.
Now, specifically starting with S349, that's case number C18 S-10138.
Yes,
Did
sir.
you ultimately do any analysis upon those items, that's New Jersey State Police 10 through 26, and then draft a report at a later date regarding your analysis?
I did, sir.
I'm just going to show you what's been marked as S-352 for identification. Do you recognize what that is?
I do, sir. So State Exhibit S-352, it's a copy of my laboratory report.
Okay. And does that document analysis that you did of those items that were submitted under S-349?
Correct, sir.
And do you ultimately offer conclusions regarding your analysis?
Yes, sir.
Now, as part of your analysis in this case or any case, I think you may have mentioned it earlier, but do you also have notes that you utilize to document some of the work that you do?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just going to show you what's been marked as S-358. Actually, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is that notes related to the work under C-18-10138?
Yes, sir. There are notes and photographs related to my laboratory report.
Okay. And Sergeant, I'll leave those there. If you do need to refer to them at any point, just please let us know.
Yes, sir.
Now, with respect to the first part of your analysis under that case, I just want to show you what's been marked as S-327, S-328, and S-329. First, I'm going to show you what's been marked as S-327 for identification. Do you recognize anything on there?
I do, sir.
Okay, and what is that?
So, State Exhibit S-327, these are evidence envelopes that were submitted to us for examination.
Okay. Now, is there a New Jersey State Police item number on those items?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what are they?
So it's our item number 22, and then our item number 22A and 22B.
Okay. Can you tell us why there's a 22 and then a 22A and 22B?
Because at the time of submission, it came in as, or there was 3 items that were in one envelope, and that's why I had to break it down. So that item number 22, there was 3 pieces of evidence in that envelope, so that's where it was subdivided into A and B.
Okay. Now, I think there's some envelopes there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And within those envelopes, there's some writing there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that that was put there by whom?
Myself, sir.
Okay, and what are you documenting on envelopes 22 and then, or the New Jersey State Police, the yellow sticker 22, and then 22A and 22B? What are you documenting there?
So I'm documenting the description of the item, and as well as any of the class characteristics that I can observe as well.
Okay, now with respect to those, were you able to make any determinations regarding class characteristics?
With these 2, or these 3 items, sir, no.
Okay. Were you able to do anything with them other than weigh them?
I was able to weigh them and then do a description of what they are.
Okay, and when we go back to, sorry, I'm just going to take you back to S-349. S-349, can you tell us if number 22 is actually listed on that property receipt with with a description?
Yes, sir.
And what does it say?
It has item number 22, it's department number 22, envelope, bullet specimen recovered from the head of Keith Caneiro at autopsy.
Okay. Now, did you document both in your report and in your notes the conclusions, essentially that you were able to weigh those items and that was essentially it?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to show you what's been marked as S-328. Do you recognize that?
I do, sir. So state exhibit that S328, it's our evidence envelope, marked number 23.
Okay. And does that indicate on the property receipt essentially where that came from?
On the evidence receipt, item number 23, department number 23, envelope, bullet specimen fragment removed from the head of Jennifer Caneiro at autopsy.
Okay, so that, is it fair to say that's a fragment again?
Lead fragment, sir, yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as S329. Can you tell us if you recognize that?
I do, sir. So state exhibit S329, that's our evidence envelope, marked number 24.
And were you able to individually evaluate that item for purposes of trying to, determine the class characteristics?
I couldn't determine any class. I could just do the weight, which is 12.9 grains, and this is a lead fragment.
Now, these three items that we just talked about, S327, S328, and S329, were you able to ultimately, do any analysis or comparison with these items to other ballistic evidence?
So the only analysis I could do with those items was weigh them, describe them, what they were, and then I would evaluate them to see if there was any tool marks for comparison purposes. But with those items, they were just too small. So there was no tool marks for me to do any type of comparison work with.
Now, I want to move on to S330. Do you recognize what S330 is?
Yes, sir. So state exhibit S330, it's our evidence envelope, mark number 25.
Okay. And were you able to weigh that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, and if you need to refer to your report to refresh your recollection or anything, or your notes, can you tell us what, if anything, you were able to do in your evaluation of that item?
Yes, sir. So I'll just refer to the report so I don't miss anything. So that examine the specimen, mark number 25, item number 25. I weighed it. The weight is 7.6 grains, and it indicates rifling with a right twist. As far as the caliber and the number of lands and grooves, I wasn't able to make that determination because of its damaged condition. And I could just describe what it is, and it's a portion of a metal jacket from a discharged metal jacket bullet.
And ultimately, does the evidence property receipt, does that indicate where that came from?
So on the evidence receipt, item number 25, department number 25, it's a bullet specimen fragment removed from the head of Jennifer Caneiro at autopsy.
Okay, if I keep you there for one more moment, I'm going to show you next what's New Jersey State Police number 26, which is S331 for identification. Is that the next item listed on that property receipt in front of you?
Yes, sir. So state exhibit S331, it's our item number 26, and it's the next item on the evidence receipt, number 26.
Okay. Now, with respect to that last S331, New Jersey State Police 26, can you tell us, based upon your analysis, whether you were able to weigh it and whether you were able to determine any class characteristics relating to that item?
I was, sir.
Okay, and what were the determinations you made?
I'll just refer to my report just because, so I can be accurate. So that item number 26, I weighed it. It weighs 12.6 grains. It indicates 6 lands, 6 grooves with a right twist. It's a portion of a metal jacket from a .38 caliber class discharge bullet.
So you were able to determine the lands and grooves, correct?
Correct, sir.
And also you were able to determine the direction of twist, right?
Correct.
Did you also receive under C18-10138, did you also receive 4 bullet specimens that were kind of less damaged than
Yes,
some
sir.
of the ones we've discussed already?
Correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as first S302. Do you recognize what that is?
I do, sir. So that's State Exhibit S-302. It's our evidence envelope. It's our specimen number 11, and it's a discharged full metal jacketed bullet.
Okay. And were you able to do an individual analysis of that item during your analysis?
Yes, sir.
And what, if anything, did you determine regarding New Jersey State Police item number 11?
It's, again, I'm going to evaluate for its class characteristics. I'm going to weigh it. It weighs 147.5 grains. It's a discharged full metal jacketed bullet. It has 6 lands. It has 6 grooves. It has a right twist, and it's a 38 caliber class.
Now I'm going to show you S304 for identification. I'm going to ask you if you recognize that.
So State Exhibit S-304. It's our item number 12. And again, this is another discharged full metal jacketed bullet.
Can you tell us the class characteristics you were able to determine based upon your analysis?
Yes, sir. So I weighed it. It weighs 156.9 grains. It's a discharged full metal jacketed bullet. It has 6 lands, 6 grooves with a right twist, and it's 38 caliber class.
Okay. Now, is it, when we look at, we've looked at your number 11 and number 12. Can you tell us where those 11 and 12 items came from?
So I'm going off the evidence receipt. I will go item number 11, department number 11. It's an envelope. It's a bullet specimen from grass underbody of northwest of property.
Okay. And the next one, 12?
Number 12, or item number 12, department number 12, envelope, bullet specimen from grass south of body, near feet on northwest of property.
And you're reading from S349, correct?
Correct, sir.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as S309 next. Can you tell us if you recognize it?
State Exhibit S-309. It's our item number 17. And again, this is another discharged full metal jacketed bullet.
Okay. Did you determine the direction of twist?
That's right direction.
And how about the number of lands and grooves?
6, sir.
Okay. And is this another item based upon the evidence property receipt that would have came from the scene at Colts Neck, New Jersey?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you S325 for identification and ask you if you recognize what that is.
You have State Exhibit S-325.
Okay.
It's our number 20, specimen number 20. And it's, again, this is another discharged full metal jacketed bullet.
Okay. Were you able to determine the direction of twist of the bullet?
Yes, direction of twist was to the right.
And how about the number of lands and grooves?
6.
Okay. So we just talked about 11, 12, 17, and 20, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, based upon the class characteristics that you just testified to, the direction of twist and the number of lands and grooves, are you able to then do something else with these items for purposes of analysis?
Yes, sir.
And what are you ultimately going to do?
So again, that's the first step in that process where I'm going to evaluate for this class characteristics. If class characteristics are the same, then I'm going to go and do a microscopic comparison of these specimens to see if they were or were not fired from the same fire.
Now, in order to make a comparison between these 4 bullets that you just talked about, how do you go about actually doing that? Can you explain that process?
Sure. So the process is always the same. Evaluate for the class characteristics. Class characteristics are the same. Then I'll take 2 specimens, 2 of the bullet specimens, and we utilize a comparison microscope. What a comparison microscope is, they're just 2 microscopes that are connected by an optical bridge, and it allows you to see both of the specimens, both of the bullets, at the same time using the same magnification. So what I'll do as an examiner, I'll look at one specimen, one of the bullet specimens, and I'll evaluate and examine for tool marks on that bullet, on that discharge bullet microscopically. And then what I'm looking for is a pattern or group of patterns of those tool marks. Once I find a pattern or group of patterns, I'll look at my other specimen, the other bullet specimen, and I'll compare them to see if I can see a similar corresponding pattern or not. And then from that, I'll do my evaluation, I'll do my examination, and then I'll come up with conclusions based on looking at those tool marks, those corresponding marks.
Now, when you look at two of these items under a microscope, do you ultimately document anything in your notes about what you see?
Yes, sir.
Do you also take photographs?
Yes.
Now, I just want to show you again S302 and S309, and these are State Police 11 and 17 respectfully. You just testified about these, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you ultimately do an evaluation of these two items underneath the comparison microscope?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you document that in your notes?
I did.
Okay. And did you ultimately photographically document that comparison?
Correct, sir.
Can we have the back table, please? I'm looking at S1G. Just going to, before we go any further, just going to show you what's been marked as S1G, slide 3 here. That's a little dark, but do you recognize what that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is this that you're looking at?
So this is a bullet comparison I did between bullet number 11 and bullet number 17. And this is just a representative snapshot of my area of agreement of corresponding marks.
Okay. Just ask that you put up slide 3 of S1G. Now,
Sergeant, can you just undo the screen on the bottom there? It's the bottom right.
Bottom right, yes, sir. Or yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
now, Sergeant, is that what's on the screen right now? Is that the photograph I just showed you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that is S1G, slide 3, correct?
Correct, sir.
And what are we looking at here?
So what you're looking at is a microscopic comparison that I did between bullet number 11 and bullet number 17. And this kind of gives you a good idea of what a comparison microscope is. And it's where you can see two bullets at the same time, number 11, number 17, underneath the same magnification. Down the middle is a dividing line or division line there, and I'm comparing tool marks from bullet number 17, and I'm comparing them against tool marks on bullet number 11.
Now, based upon what you're documenting here, and based upon what you did in evaluating these two specimens side by side, were you able to make any determinations with respect to State Police 11 and State Police 17?
I was, sir.
Okay, and what were those conclusions?
So my conclusion at looking at number 11 versus number 17 was that these two bullets were fired out of the same barrel of a gun.
Now, at this point in time, you're not making any comparison to a specific firearm yet, correct?
No, it's just 11 versus 17, sir.
Okay. And these bullets, I think you said previously, 11 and 17, they both came from Colt Snack, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Now, you talked about your notes earlier, and you talked about documenting areas of agreement, correct?
Correct, sir.
I'm going to show you, you have S358 up here, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
okay. And S58, do you actually document in those notes your observations and your conclusions with respect to what we just saw on slide 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do you document about what it is that you saw in this photo?
So document what was compared, number 11 versus 17. I'm also documenting my conclusions, whether it would be an identification, an inconclusive, or an elimination, and then my areas of agreement, where I found that agreement. And the area that this agreement that I'm seeing is in one of the land impressions on those two bullets.
when you talk about a land impression, is that something, that agreement, is that something that we can see within that photo, which is page 3 of 10 of your notes, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, can we see it there?
It's boxed out, highlighted in an area. That's the area that I used. That I did my comparison. I found sufficient agreement, and you see those corresponding marks.
Okay, so it was your conclusion that those two bullets came from the same gun?
Correct, sir.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as S309. I believe you've already indicated that this is one of the items that you evaluated for class characteristics, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's a bullet identified as State Police Item 17?
Correct, sir.
Now, sorry, we were just talking about comparison of two bullets. First being New Jersey State Police Item 17, which is S309, New Jersey State Police Item number 26, which is S331. Are these two items that you ultimately microscopically compared to one another?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when we talk about 17, we talk about it coming from where?
17, according to here, a bullet specimen from kitchen floor.
Okay, and with respect to item number 26, from State Police item number 26, does that indicate where it came from?
On here, it has a fragment of jacket, right side of brain.
Okay. Can I have slide 4 of S1G? Now, in front of you is page 4 of your notes, correct? You're looking at S358, correct?
Correct, sir.
And what's on page 4 of your notes, is that what's on the screen right now?
It is, sir.
Okay, and what is that photograph, what does that photo depict?
So this is another photograph of bullet number 17 versus that bullet specimen number 26.
Okay, these are the two items we just discussed, and you identified, correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us what we are actually seeing within the box that you placed on slide 4?
So within that box, you're looking at a pattern or a group of patterns of tool marks, and they correspond with one another. Bullet number 26, or bullet specimen 26 versus bullet number 17. And this is another land impression that I used as an area of identification.
So that, based upon your analysis of the comparison between 17 and 26, you are saying that they came from the same gun?
Correct, sir.
You previously testified regarding a prior comparison that involved that same bullet number 17 as well as bullet specimen number 11, correct?
Sir.
Now, I'm going to show you S304 in State Police item number 12. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does it say where that came from?
Oh, bullet from grass south of body, adjacent 2 feet.
Okay. Can I have slide 5, please? Now, the slide that's before you, what is that showing?
That's another microscopic comparison that I did between bullet number 12 and bullet number 17.
Okay. Bullet number 12, we already talked about, is S304. And then bullet item number 17, here in front of you, it's S309, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, can you describe, well, straight there. Is this a photograph that you took?
Yes, sir.
Is it? Now, does it depict or does it identify observations that you actually made under a microscope?
It does, sir.
And can you tell us what, if any, conclusions you were able to draw, which are documented in that photograph?
That bullet number 12 and bullet number 17 were fired in the same barrel of a gun.
Okay. And did you document in your notes or in your notes, let's say, the areas of agreement that you identified based upon that microscopic evaluation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what did you document?
They were located in that land impression.
Now, you have S304 already, correct?
Correct, sir.
That is State Police Item 12, right?
Correct.
And then I'm going to show you what's been marked as S325. Do you recognize what that is?
At State Exhibit S325, and that's our item number 20.
Does it indicate where that came from?
It says bullet specimen from northwest of property embedded in ground.
I want to show you slide 6 from S1G. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what are we looking at here?
It's a microscopic comparison that I did between bullet number 12 and bullet number 20.
Okay. And does that accurately show the observations that you made under the comparison microscope of those two bullets?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you able to draw any conclusions after making those observations under the comparison microscope?
That these two bullets, 12 and 20, were fired from the same barrel of a gun.
Did you, again, in your notes, did you document any areas of agreement between those two specimens, bullet 12 and bullet 20?
Yes, the areas of agreement were found in the land impressions.
Now, can you see the land impressions in slide 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, there's a, I'm just asking, using the stylus on that slide, potentially, if you could kind of just mark what it is we're looking at and where you see those areas of agreement.
Yes, sir. So if we look at the bullet as a whole, I don't know if I can draw in here. This area here that I'm marking, that's the groove impression on the bullet. And this area, pretty much starting from here on down, would be the land impression. So what we were talking about before, when I talked about rifling, inside the barrel of a gun, that groove inside the barrel of a gun is cut out. So it's the inverse. When that bullet's going down the barrel of the gun, that groove on the bullet becomes that raised portion, and then the raised land portion inside the barrel is making more of a flattened impression on the bullet for the land impression here. So what I'm looking at are tool marks. One of the first things I'll do is I'll look at bullet number 20, and I'm looking for a pattern or group of patterns on bullet number 20. And this is the area that I found. For me as an examiner, it's a pattern or group of patterns of tool marks, striated marks, being created from imperfections on the land impression inside a barrel of a gun. Once I find that pattern, then I'll go over to bullet number 12, and I'll see if that pattern is repeating or corresponding on bullet number 12. When I was looking at bullet number 12, this is the area here of corresponding marks that I found, and they're corresponding, they're blending together, they match. And when I see this type of agreement on two bullet specimens, this is telling me or showing me as an examiner that these two marks were produced by the same tool, meaning it's a bullet, so these marks were produced by these two bullets being shot out of the same barrel of a gun.
And based upon what you just described in your observations under the microscope, you document in your notes and also in your report that you believe that these two bullets came from the same firearm.
Correct, sir.
All right. So this is slide number 5, it was? Just confirm.
I believe it's number 6, Your Honor.
6, yeah, you're right, 6. So it's 6.1. Thank you.
Now, in your report, based upon the things that you just said, in your report, do you document any conclusions that you reached between the state police items 11, 12, 17, and 26?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what ultimately did you conclude in that regard?
That those bullets or bullet specimens were fired in the same barrel of a gun.
Now, also as part of the initial evidence submission, I believe it says 349 in front of you, did you also receive any cartridge cases for purposes of analysis?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to show you what's been marked as S305, S306, S307, S308, S311, S312, S326. Can I ask you if you recognize these items?
I do, sir.
Okay, and what are those items?
So all these items are discharged cartridge cases. They're of 9mm Luger caliber, and they're head stamp 10, a GFL 10.
Okay. And did you individually look at each one of those cartridge cases in order to determine, class characteristics and the like?
Yes, it's the first part of my analysis.
Okay. Now, based upon that part of your analysis and your individual observations with respect to all those cartridge cases, what then did you do?
So again, because they have the same class characteristics, I would go to that next step or next level of analysis, which would be a microscopic comparison of these cartridge cases to see if they were or were not fired in the same gun.
And how do you go about doing that with respect to all of those?
It's the same as I would do with a comparison of discharged bullets. I would take one specimen, one of the cartridge cases, and I could look at the breech face, the firing pin, chamber marks, different areas where tool marks come in contact with this cartridge case. I'd look for patterns or groups of patterns, and I would compare them to another specimen, another cartridge case, to see if those patterns or group of patterns of tool marks of individual characteristics correspond or not.
Now, if we were going to look at your notes for that report, I know the notes are up there. Now, do you document your evaluation of all those cartridge cases in, I believe it's part 3 of your report?
I do, sir.
And do you write anything specific with respect to characteristics of those cartridge cases that they all share?
So the class characteristics that they share are that 9mm Luger. The head stamp is the same, which is that 10 GFL 10. But then I'll also do additional notes and observations where each one of these specimens have a brass case, a nickel primer, hemispherical firing pin, There's extractor, ejector marks, and there's chamber marks present.
Now, when you just said there's extractor marks and ejector marks present on those casings, what exactly does that tell you?
One of the things that tells me is that these cartridge cases, absent of a gun, that they were fired in a semi-automatic pistol, because those are characteristic, an extractor mark and ejector marks of parts that you would see in a semi-automatic pistol.
And does the presence of marks, does that tell you that you can then go and place each one of those under a comparison microscope?
Yes, sir.
And there's things to compare to one another?
Right, so there's tool marks that are present for comparison purposes.
Now, I want to show you specifically S305. Can you tell us what that is?
S305, it's our item number 13, and it's a discharge cartridge case, 9mm Luger caliber, head stamped at 10 GFL10.
Okay, and that 10 GFL10, what does that mean?
That's the head stamp. So
Okay.
the GFL would indicate the market, or the brand, or the manufacturer of that cartridge case.
Okay. Now, is that also, is the head stamp also marked on another part of the packaging of that item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's it say there?
There's another evidence envelope, cartridge casing, GFL 10, 9x19 on grass near paved deck on northwest of property.
Okay. And then S307, do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Is that another casing?
It is, sir.
And is it marked with the state police number?
It is number 15.
Okay. And does it indicate where that was found?
Written on the envelope, it's cartridge casing. It says GFL 10, 9x19 on grass near paved deck on northwest of property.
Okay. And just in case we didn't ask, with respect to all the cartridge casings that you've identified thus far, did they all share the same head stamp?
They did, sir.
Okay. And ultimately, we still have it. Can you undo that? Or can we preserve that if we didn't do it already? I'm sorry.
Did it.
Oh, we did.
6.1, yeah.
Can you just undo that then? Can I have slide 7, please? Now, what are we looking at there, Sergeant?
It's another photograph that I took of my comparison between cartridge case number 15 versus cartridge case number 13.
Okay. And what area of those cartridge cases are we looking at right there?
You're looking at the tip of the firing pin impression, which struck the primer.
Okay. And what, if anything, were you able to determine based upon not so much the photo, but your observations under the comparison microscope?
So based on my observations, I'm doing the same analysis, or the same microscopic comparison, where I'm looking at cartridge case number 13, and I'm finding a pattern of tool marks within that firing pin impression. And then I'm comparing that pattern to the cartridge case number 15 and seeing if that pattern corresponds or not. What I'm looking at, again, these are those individual characteristics. These marks are made from when the firing pin hits that primer. So there's imperfections on the tip of the firing pin, which are distinct to that firing pin, and they're striking that primer, and they're leaving this pattern or group of patterns of tool marks. When I'm comparing these tool marks, and I'm looking to see if these tool marks are corresponding or not, this is the type of agreement I'd expect to see from 2 firing pins that were made by the same pin and the same gun.
Does that allow you to make any conclusions with respect to cartridge case 15 and cartridge case 13, whether or not they were actually fired from the same firearm?
Yes, correct. That 15 and 13 were fired in the same gun.
You have 307 up there, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, and that's NJSP number what?
Number 15.
And then I have, I'm going to show you S308. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, sir. State exhibit S308. It's R number 16, and it's another 9mm Luger caliber discharged cartridge case, head stamp 10 GFL10.
And does that indicate where that item was actually found?
This item number 16, cartridge casing, GFL 10, 9x19 on grass near reddish stain on northwest of property.
When we talk about property, we're talking about cold snack, correct?
Correct, sir.
Can I have slide 8, please? Now, what are we looking at in slide 8?
So again, this is another photograph between cartridge case 16 and then cartridge case number 15.
Okay. And does that accurately depict or show your observations that you made under the comparison microscope when looking at cartridge case 16 and cartridge case 15?
Correct.
And based upon your training and experience and your observations, what, if any, comparisons or conclusions were you able to draw?
So the same conclusions as before, that based on this area, these are breech face marks, so this is different than your firing pin impression. These marks are created when that cartridge case is getting pushed back against the breech face of a particular gun. It's leaving an impressed mark, like we were talking about before. So when comparing number 15 and number 16, looking at these breech face marks, and again, you're looking at, I'm comparing one pattern of surface contours, comparing them to the other pattern on number 16 and 15. And again, this is the type of agreement I expect to see from two cartridge cases that were fired in the same gun, coming in contact with the same breech face. So it was my conclusion, based on these observations, that these two cartridge cases were fired in the same gun.
Now, in your notes, because I think you talked about different areas thus far, correct?
Correct, sir.
Different areas of agreement between two cartridge cases?
Correct.
Now, do you document the identifications in your notes?
Yes, sir.
And do you document the areas of agreement in your notes?
Yes.
Okay. And what exactly did you document with respect to the comparisons that you made between the cartridge cases?
So between these cartridge cases and all the cartridge cases specifically, that they were fired in the same gun. So I have an identification for my conclusion. The areas of agreement that I used were the firing pin, the breech face marks, and then there were chamber marks as well.
I'm going to show you S306. And see if you recognize that.
So State Exhibit S306, it's our item number 14, and it's, again, a 9mm Luger caliber discharge cartridge case, head stamp 10, GFL 10.
Does it indicate where that was found?
This was found as cartridge casing on the paved deck on northwest of property.
And then S326. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is it?
It's State Exhibit S326. It's our item number 21. It's a 9mm Luger caliber discharge shell, head stamp 10, GFL 10.
Does it indicate where it was found?
Yes, sir. Cartridge casing from northwest of property, embedded in ground.
Can I have slide 9, please? What are we looking at there?
This is cartridge case number 21 against cartridge case number 14. And we're specifically looking at chamber marks. So this is another area of a firearm, separate from the firing pin and the breech face. What chamber marks are, when that cartridge casing gets loaded inside the chamber of a gun, there's 4 walls that where that cartridge case is at. What happens is when you fire a gun and that cartridge casing gets discharged, that pressure builds up, that casing will actually swell up like a balloon, and it's going to come in contact with the chambers, the 4 chambers, I guess almost like a room, walls. It's going to come in contact with that, and then when that cartridge casing is going to get ejected and extracted from there, it's causing striated marks, scratch marks, as it's getting ejected and extracted from that chamber. And then, again, I'm comparing a pattern, a group of patterns on number 14, and I'm seeing if that pattern repeats on number 21. And that highlighted area there is those corresponding marks. And again, this is the type of agreement I'd expect to see from 2 cartridge cases that were fired in the same gun, specifically the chamber area of that gun. I would not expect to see that type of agreement from 2 cartridge cases fired in 2 different chambers.
So based upon your evaluation of the 7 cartridge cases that you received, their state police item numbers 13 through 16, 18, 19, and 21, what, if any, conclusions did you draw regarding all 7 of those cartridge cases?
All 7 of those cartridge cases were fired in the same weapon.
I just wanted to, same report, I wanted to go back to your item number 10. It's S301. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, sir. So state exhibit S301, it's our item number 10, sir.
And what is it?
It's a 9mm Luger caliber metal jacketed bullet cartridge, has stamp 10, GFL 10. It's mark number 10. This is an unfired cartridge case. This is a live round of ammunition.
Okay. Do you make any notes regarding whether or not it's got any identifiable markings on it?
We would, sir. So I would identify the type of primer and then also what is on the head stamp as well.
Okay. And ultimately, in your report, which is, or in your notes, S358, do you draw any conclusions regarding number 10 and any other mark, and any marks that you could ultimately compare to something later?
Yes, so number 10, it wasn't fired in because it's an unfired round, but it was chambered in and extracted from the same gun as those other 7 cartridge cases.
Okay, and how did you go about determining that?
So what I would look for is there's an extractor mark is where I made that identification. So what would happen if you have a live round of ammunition that's unfired? You can load that round inside your firearm, and then there's an extractor inside that chamber which hooks around the rim of the cartridge case. So if that gun is loaded and there's a cartridge case inside the chamber of that gun and you don't fire it, but you just bring that slide back, which is under spring tension, that extractor is going to pull back on that cartridge case, and then it's going to hit, there's an ejector, and it's going to get extracted and ejected from that gun without being fired. So I could look at that extractor mark, from the extractor of the claw, because it's marking it, and then I would compare it to extractor marks from any of the cartridge cases that were fired.
Now, ultimately, did you document a comparison between state police items 14 and 10, that being the live round that you just discussed, which is S301, and the cartridge case S306?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I have slide 10, please? Now, can you explain what we're looking at here?
So this would be on the underside of the rim of the cartridge case, on the side of the cartridge case. And it's actually, it looks like a claw mark, and that's from that extractor. So when that cartridge case, number 14, again, is being discharged from that firearm, it's that claw is leaving a tool mark on that rim. So again, I'm looking at a tool mark and a pattern, a group of patterns of tool marks, and I'm comparing them to that live round number 10. And I'm seeing those corresponding marks. So what that's telling me, as an examiner, that at one time that live round number 10 was cycled through the same firearm as the cartridge case number 14.
Now, with respect to, obviously you photographically document the conclusions you just talked about in slide 10, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, that's your representation, that's a photo depicting what you saw under the comparison microscope, correct?
Yes, sir, a snapshot of what I was looking at.
And ultimately in your report, however, were you able to make any conclusions with respect to that live round and all of the other 7, or of the 7 cartridge cases that you analyzed?
Yes, sir, that live round at one time was cycled through the same firearm as those 7 other cartridge cases.
Now, the receipt up there, I believe it's S-350. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
You referenced that earlier, correct?
Correct, sir.
And based upon receiving that, that request there, were you asked to look at some other ballistic evidence under a different case number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what's the case number, to be clear?
It's our case number, laboratory number C18-10139.
Now, did you ultimately draft a report under that case number, or more than one report under
Yes,
that
sir.
case number?
Yes.
I'm just going to show you what's been marked as S-353 for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
That's a copy of my lab report.
Okay. Now, at the top, before you talk about firearms, do you talk about some other piece of evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is that regarding?
This is regarding an unfired live round.
Okay. Is that a different unfired live round than the one we discussed previously?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you able to draw any, or were you able to make any observations of that, at least from a class perspective?
Just the caliber of that cartridge case, sir.
And what was that?
It's a 9mm Luger caliber, metal jacketed cartridge, head stamp 10, GFL 10.
Okay. Now, was that consistent with the head stamps that you described previously?
Yes.
And based upon that request for analysis, request for analysis, were you asked to analyze or test fire several firearms?
Yes, sir.
And did you document all of the firearms that you test fired that were delivered to the state police by Detective Steve Vogt?
Yes.
And do you recall how many firearms you test fired?
8, sir. Or, I'm sorry, there might have been, there's 8. There was 9, sir.
Just going to show you what's been marked as S-259. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is it?
This is my nomenclature or note page reference to these firearms that I tested.
Okay. Now, I just want to talk to you about, did you document the test firing or each firearm individually in a page in your notes?
Yes, sir.
And so right here, we're looking at the first page, correct?
Correct.
And what type of weapon are you documenting here?
It's a 9mm Luger caliber Glock semi-automatic pistol.
Okay. And does it reference a state police number?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's item number 9.
And did you individually document your observations or your analysis of each firearm that you received?
Yes, sir.
And on that property receipt, we just talked about here, S-350, can you just let us know what the firearms are that you received for purposes of test firing?
Yes, sir. So item number 9 was a semi-automatic handgun, a Glock 19 9mm handgun. Item number 10, another semi-automatic pistol, Glock 17 9mm Luger handgun. Number 11, semi-automatic handgun with black grips, Springfield Armory, model 1911. Number 12 is another semi-automatic handgun with a wooden grip, unknown make or model. Number 13, semi-automatic handgun, black grip, Colt model. Number 14, semi-automatic handgun, 6-hour P229. Number 15, semi-automatic pistol, 6-hour P228. Number 16, ballistic evidence, it's a gun barrel, 9mm parasig. Number 17, ballistic evidence, unknown possible firearm part. And you have 18, firearm semi-automatic handgun, P228. And number 19 is a Smith & Wesson Walther PPS 9mm handgun.
Now, as part of your evaluation of those firearms, did you analyze each of them for purposes of like class characteristics, the firearms themselves?
So not so much the class characteristic. Well, the class characteristic would be a part of it in my nomenclature. But with firearms that come to us, we'll test fire every gun that comes to us, and we want to find out if the guns are operable and capable of being discharged, whether fire or not.
And ultimately, did you test fire each one of those delivered firearms?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just going to show you what's been marked as S354. Do you recognize that ultimately?
I do, sir. Yes,
Okay, is that a report that you later drafted?
it is.
And it's going to discuss cross comparisons between different items?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But as far as what we were discussing on S353, your 2/4/2019 report, do you document the test firing of the weapons?
I do, sir.
Okay. Now, based upon that, were you able to determine whether each one of those weapons was ultimately capable of being discharged?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the next part of that report is part 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what does that talk about? Which item does it talk about?
So it's item number 16.
And what is item number 16?
That's a gun barrel.
Before I get to item number 16, I just want to show you item number 18. I'll show you item number, State Police number 18, which is S-181.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize what that is?
Your Honor, the gun's unloaded. It has a lock on it, safe to handle. I do, sir.
Okay, what is it?
It's a SIG semi-automatic pistol here.
Okay, and is that, like you said to the court, does that have a gun lock in it?
It does, sir.
Okay, and it's safe, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you document in your notes how you found that weapon, or anything about the weapon, the way that it was delivered to you?
If I can just reference the note page so I don't miss anything.
Here.
So my notes, I'll do a description of the firearm as well as test firing the gun. Description is 9mm Luger caliber SIG Sauer semi-automatic pistol. Has a serial number of B341027, models of P228. 6 lanes, 6 screws with the right twist. That's semi-automatic pistol. As far as the observations made with this, it has a green tritium dot front sight. When I received it, inside the chamber was a red dot laser bore sight, unknown brand or manufactured, marked 9mm Luger. And then it was submitted without any type of ammunition magazine.
Now, that red dot laser bore sight that you said was in the chamber, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm just going to show you as part of the item here, still marked NJSP, item number 18. Can you open that up? What is that we're looking at?
So this is a mechanism or a device which you would put inside the chamber of the firearm. It's inert, so if you fire it, it's not going to detonate anything. It's not a live round. There's no bullet. There's no propellant or anything like that. What this is on the back side of it, when that firing pin will strike the back of this mechanism, it's a laser sight. So you can use this for test firing or practice your accuracy with a gun.
Now, we were discussing a barrel, correct? That you talked about being provided for purposes of analysis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recognize S-176?
I do, sir. So State Exhibit S-176, it's our item number 16, and it is that SIG brand barrel.
To show you what's been marked as S-177 for identification, I'll ask you if this was an additional item that you received for purposes of evaluation.
So State Exhibit S-177, it's our item number 17. And it's also labeled with a sticker as well, with our laboratory number, that's C18-10139, and number 17.
What is that?
It's a homemade silencer device.
Now, did you ultimately compare it to see if it fit and functioned with any of the firearms that were submitted?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall which ones it fit and function with?
Yes, sir.
Which ones was this?
Again, just so I'm accurate, if I could refer to my report. The silencer was test fired with a 9mm SIG Sauer semi-automatic pistol with serial number B341027. It's our item number 18. And then I also test fired it with the SIG Sauer semi-automatic pistol, serial number B232995, our item number 15. So those were the two firearms that I used that silencer to test fire it with.
Now, I'm talking about New Jersey State Police item number 16, which is S-176. Can you tell us what ultimately you did with this barrel?
So again, with that barrel, I'll identify it for its class characteristics because there's rifling inside that barrel. 6 land, 6 screws with a right twist. And then I would take that barrel and I would test fire that barrel with the 2 SIG pistols that were submitted for examination.
And ultimately, did it fit into both of those SIG weapons
Correct.
that were submitted to you?
Yes, sir.
Now, talked about previously identified S-181. This was the 6 Sauer that had the laser in the chamber, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as S-193. Do you recognize what that is?
State Exhibit S-193. That's our item number 15. And it's a 6 Sauer semi-automatic handgun, model number P228.
And ultimately, S-193 and S-191, I'm sorry, S-181 and S-193, these are both 6 Sauers, correct?
Correct.
And were these the 2 weapons that you placed the barrel in order to test fire them?
Correct, sir.
Okay, just these 2 handguns, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, as far as like how you went about doing that, like is that switching barrels? Is that hard?
No, sir.
Okay, and can anyone do that, or anyone who knows firearms can do that?
It's not hard. There's just a slide release lever. You would push the lever down, and that would allow the slide to come off of the frame, and then you would just take the barrel, comes right out. It's under spring tension, but it's not difficult at all.
Okay. And both of those 6-hour weapons that you just identified, they both came to you with barrels in them. Is that
Yes, sir.
accurate?
Yes,
Did you fire them with the barrels that they came with
yes,
as well?
yes, sir.
And then also with the barrel that was submitted under State Police Item Number 16?
Correct.
Now, I want to talk to you about ultimately whether or not you were involved in doing any cross comparisons.
Yes, sir.
You had items that were submitted, bullets and shell casings, correct?
Correct.
And you also had some weapons, right?
Correct.
Some firearms in the barrel, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us, just generally speaking, how you go about actually doing comparisons between ballistic evidence and the firearms?
Sure. The process is always the same. You look for those class characteristics on the bullets and the cartridge cases, and then I'll just compare them to the class characteristics of the firearms that were submitted. The class characteristics are different on the bullets and cartridge cases to the submitted firearms, but you don't have to do any type of microscopic comparison. The class characteristics are different. For those firearms where the class characteristics are the same as the bullet and the cartridge case, then you would do a microscopic comparison of those. How we do it when we have a gun that's submitted to us and it has the same class characteristics, I would take one of the 6-hour guns, and we have a range, so I'd fire 2 shots into our water tank. So I have my known test standards. I have known bullets and known cartridge cases that were fired in that gun. And then I'll take those test standards, my 2 known bullets, my 2 known cartridge cases, and I'll look at them microscopically and see how they're marking, or the tool marks are marking. So I have my knowns from that gun. So I'll take my knowns and I'll compare them to my unknowns, and I'm looking for patterns and see if those patterns correspond or not, and try and determine if they were fired in that particular gun or not.
Okay. So ultimately, you're firing the weapons, and then you're maintaining the test shells, correct? Or test bullets?
Both, yes, sir.
Okay. And then ultimately, you use those to make comparisons?
Yes, my knowns to my unknowns.
Okay. Now, was there a point in time when some additional ammunition was provided to you for purposes of test firing these guns?
Yes, sir.
Now, can you tell us why you utilized ammunition that was provided to you by the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office?
Sure. So you want to use like ammunition when we're test firing. In our lab, pretty much our policy is we use our own ammunition. We don't typically use ammunition from the outside because we don't know where that ammunition comes from. So we have a reference collection of ammunition that we'll use to test fire, to do any test fires or microscopic comparisons. The one issue in this case, the test fires that we had were different ammunition than the items, the bullets and the cartridge cases that I did my initial examination. And it mattered. One of the things that was unique with this 9mm Luger ammunition from the scene, or that was submitted from the scene, was a bigger bullet. It was a heavier bullet. It was a longer bullet. We didn't have that type of ammunition. So when I did my test fires and I compared the tool marks to the tool marks from the casing, or from the bullets from the casing, it wasn't marking as well. The marks weren't repeating as well. So it really helped me to use that same ammunition because we didn't have it in reference collection, and the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office was able to provide that ammunition to me for test fires, so I can shoot like ammunition and I can get a best representative sample to do my comparison work.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as S351. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
So State Exhibit S351, it's another evidence receipt, and it's the box of ammunition that was submitted to us from the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office for test fires.
Okay. And ultimately, did you use that for test firing purposes?
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm opening up S195, correct? you recognize ultimately what's in here?
Yes, sir. So State Exhibit S-195, that's our item number 21. And that's that box of Fiocchi ammunition that I use for test fires.
Okay. And ultimately, does it indicate where this actual Fiocchi box of ammunition came from?
The location says here, 27 Tilton Drive in Freehold Township, from Paul Caneiro.
And ultimately, did you utilize this ammunition to test fire the 2.6 hours as well as both with the barrel number 16 in them?
Correct, sir.
And do these have the same, this box, what's marked as NJSP, item number 21, States Exhibit 195, does it have the same head stamps as those, the shell casings that you previously identified?
Yes, sir.
Sir, before you put that away, you said S-195, it came from where?
Your Honor, the location was 27, it's like Tilton, Tilton Drive in Freehold Township.
In Freehold Township? Okay.
Now, ultimately, did this ammunition assist with the markings from your test fires?
From the bullets, yes, sir.
Now, you have your 2/7/19 report up in front of you? Now, we talked about looking at those weapons and determining like which weapons could fire which types of ammunition. Were you able to make exclusions from the submitted weapons with respect to whether or not they could actually fire the type of ammunition you had in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did you exclude all guns except for those 2 6 hours?
Yes, sir.
Now, you previously talked about the 5 bullet specimens, correct?
Correct.
And those are the ones that you said all came from the same firearm, correct?
From the barrel of the same firearm, yes, sir.
I just want to be clear about that. You said the barrel of the same firearm. Can you just explain why we're talking about the barrel as opposed to the actual firearm itself?
Yes, because the barrel is a removable part, so you can have a barrel in a firearm, and then, like I said, you could just drop that slide, release lever, remove the slide, or remove the barrel and put another barrel in there, so a barrel is interchangeable with the actual firearm.
Okay. Now, with respect to your 2/7, February 7, 2019 report that's in front of you, S-354, did you ultimately make any conclusions regarding New Jersey State Police items 11, 12, 17, 20, and 26?
Yes, sir.
And those are 5 bullets that came from Cold Snack, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What, if any, conclusions did you draw with respect to those cross comparisons?
That those 5 were discharged in that one submitted barrel. I think it was number 16. Or, I'm sorry, from that barrel that was submitted.
So when we talk about S-176, this is New Jersey State Police item 16, the barrel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And ultimately, you made a conclusion that all 5 of those bullets were fired from this barrel?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you ultimately do any comparison work with respect to the shell casings that had also been recovered at the Pulse Tech scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we talked about all 7 of those earlier, correct?
Correct, sir.
How they all matched each other?
Yes, sir.
Now, with respect to the comparison that you ultimately were able to make Was that with respect to one of the 6-hour firearms?
Yes, sir.
And again, you just talked about the bullets and the barrel. Now we're talking about the cartridge cases and the firearm, correct?
Correct.
And can you just explain that difference?
Yes, sir. So in that slide portion of a gun, the firing pin, your breech face, your extractor, your ejector, the firing pin aperture, that would be contained inside that slide of the gun.
Okay. And in your report, ultimately, do you talk about the 7 cartridge cases and the comparison to any of the firearms?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what were the conclusions that you drew in that regard?
So those 7 cartridge cases marked 13 through 16, 18, 19, and 12. I compared them to test cartridge cases that were fired in the 9mm Luger caliber SIG semi-automatic pistol, serial number B233959, and those cartridge cases were identified as having been discharged in that submitted pistol.
So when we're talking about those comparisons, we're looking at S193. That's the 6-hour serial number ending in 959.
Yes, sir.
And your conclusion in S54 is regarding all the submitted shell casings and the comparison to that weapon, S193.
Correct.
And your determination, just to be clear, was what?
That those were fired in that submitted pistol.
Can I have S1 slide 14, S1 G slide 14? Now, Sergeant Clayton, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at?
So it's another snapshot of the comparison that I did between bullet number 17 and then one of the test bullets that I fired out of that barrel, number 16. So again, I'm looking at a land impression, one of the land impressions, and I'm looking for a pattern or a group of patterns and see if it corresponds to my known bullet that I test fired in that, for one of my test bullets from number 16 from that barrel. So I'm doing that comparison. And then what I'm looking at is those corresponding marks between bullet number 17 against one of my test bullets that I fired in bullet number 16. And I'm seeing those corresponding marks. So what that's telling me as an examiner, seeing that level of agreement, would be that bullet number 17 was fired in the same bullet, my test fire bullet, out of that barrel number 16.
Can I have slide 15, please? And what are we looking at here?
So it's the same bullet, bullet number 17, and then I compared it again to that same test bullet that was fired in that barrel, mark number 16. And this is another land impression. So there's 6 land impressions on this bullet, and this is a different land impression where I'm finding that agreement between bullet number 17 and that test bullet that I used that was fired in number 16. So it's just another area of agreement on that bullet that I'm using to make an identification. So now there's 2 land impressions that you're finding that type of agreement.
Okay. So there we're talking about, those last 2 photos were test bullets fired using this barrel number 16.
Correct, and comparing them to bullet number 17.
Which is one of the 5 bullets from the Colt's neck seam.
Correct.
Can I have slide 16, please? Now, what are we looking at here?
So here is I'm looking at cartridge case number 13. and I'm comparing it to a test cartridge case that I fired in that SIG gun, number 15. So on the left side is a test fire from that gun, and I'm comparing it to the cartridge case number 13. And specifically what I'm looking at is that firing pin drag mark. What that firing pin drag mark is, when that firing pin hits that primer to detonate that primer, when that slide comes back and the pressure drops, that pin's not getting in a way out of the way in time, so it's dragging across a portion of that primer, and it's creating these firing pin drag marks. So again, within that firing pin drag mark, I'm looking for a pattern or a group of patterns, and I found a pattern, and I'm comparing that pattern to the pattern that's on that test fire cartridge case that I fired in that SIG gun number 15. And again, you're seeing those corresponding marks. And what that's telling me as an examiner, that these two cartridge cases, based on that firing pin drag, they were fired in the same firearm. So number 13, my unknown, I compared it to my known, which I fired in that one SIG gun. I'm seeing those corresponding marks, and that's telling me that number 13 was fired in the same gun as that submitted gun number 15.
That cartridge case number 13, that's also one of the cartridge cases from Colt's Neck that you've already said matched all the others there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can I just ask you on slide 16, does it indicate the level of magnification there?
28 times.
Okay. Now can I have slide 17? Now what do we see here?
So number 17, this is a picture of a snapshot of the firing pin impression. So again, I took number 13, my unknown, and then I compared it to one of the test cartridge cases that I fired in that same gun, that gun number 15, and I'm seeing agreement within that firing pin impression again, and that's telling me that number 13 was fired in that gun number 15. I'm comparing my unknown to my known sample from my test fire.
Can I have slide 18, please? What are we looking at here, sir?
Again, this is I used cartridge case number 13, and I compared them to another cartridge case, another test fire cartridge case that I fired in that gun, number 15, and I'm looking at those breech face marks. And again, I'm seeing those corresponding pattern on number 13, and I'm comparing them to the pattern that I found on one of the test fires from number 15, and I'm seeing those corresponding marks. And again, what that is telling me that, again, number 13 was fired in that cartridge case that came from gun number 15.
And is it your expert opinion that all of those cartridge cases that you previously examined and compared to one another, that they all came from that gun number 15?
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, when we talk about gun number 15, this S-193?
S-193, yes, our number 15, sir.
Just to be clear, as far as the markings on this box, it does contain the serial number, correct?
Yes, sir, it's B233959.
Okay, and does it indicate where it came from?
It says recovered from basement.
Now, I want to just show you what's been marked as S364 for identification. you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's another cross comparison that I did.
Okay, well, what is it that you were cross-comparing in that report?
So what I cross-compared was bullet cartridge mark number 10, and that was in our laboratory number C18-10138. And I compared that against one of the test cartridge cases that were discharged in that Sig Sauer semi-automatic pistol, serial number B233959.
If you look back at your earlier receipt, can you tell us what NJSP 10 is?
NGSP would be that live or unfired cartridge case.
I'm just going to show you what's been marked previously as S301. Do you recognize that?
State Exhibit S-301, it's our item number 10, and it's a 9mm Luger caliber metal jacketed bullet cartridge, head stamp 10, GFL 10.
It indicates it was found on the paved deck on the southwest side,
Correct.
and it shares the same head stamp as all the other casings.
Correct, sir.
And ultimately, you said that report that we just talked about, you were comparing item number 10, S301 to what?
It's item number 10 from one of the test cartridge cases that I fired in that SIG semi-automatic pistol, serial number B233959.
Can I have slide 19, please? What are we looking at there?
So this is one of the test cartridge cases that I fired in that gun, and I compared it to that bullet cartridge number 10, and we're looking at that extractor mark again. And again, I'm looking at the corresponding marks from the extractor marks from both the test cartridge cases to that bullet cartridge cases, and you can see the agreement corresponding marks. What that's showing me as an examiner that bullet cartridge number 10 was chambered in and extracted from that firearm at one point in time.
Okay. And can I have slide 20, please? What are we looking at here?
So again, this is a cartridge case, or one of the test cartridge cases, the same one that I test fired in that gun, and I compared it to that bullet cartridge number 10. And this is a tool mark that I'm looking at on, again, from that bullet cartridge being extracted from the chamber of that firearm. So I'm looking at that tool mark that I found on that wallet cartridge case from it being extracted or chambered in and extracted from that gun. It's just another area of agreement where I'm finding corresponding marks.
Okay, so this is slide 20 of S1G. We just looked at slide 19 of S1G, correct?
Correct.
They're just two different areas of agreement that you noted.
Correct, sir.
Okay, I just want to lastly show you the mark is S368. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
So again, these are my notes, and it has bullet cartridge number 10 versus one of the test casings from that gun. My conclusion was an identification, and my area of agreement was in the extractor mark, and then a tool mark on the case body of that cartridge case.
And were those, the areas of agreement we just discussed, were they depicted or were they adequately shown in slides 19 and 20 of S1G that we just looked at?
Yes, sir.
And ultimately, the conclusion was that your state police item 10, the live round, was chambered in and extracted from this firearm. State police item number 15. Ron, at this time, I don't have any further questions for you.
All right, can we turn the lights back on? All right, ladies and gentlemen, heard a lot of expert testimony today, so I'm going to stop it.